Please enjoy this preview of my book, The Fall from Lunathal. If you like it, consider picking it up on Audible or Amazon today. Audible presents The Fall from Lunathal. Written and narrated by Christopher S. Carlone. Prologue. 700 years ago. On the highest peak of the tallest mountain in all of Extellus, the last elves of Avaria settled. The world around them was desolate and flooding. Otherworldly waters seemed to pour endlessly through the forests and valleys. Soon, even the Avarian peaks would be part of the sea. The elves performed a desperate ritual, using the last might of their arcana to commune with their goddess. They sent her a plea for her aid against the rising tide. The goddess answered them with a single tear, which fell from the moon and landed on the highest point of the mountain. Where it fell, it left a small, shimmering pool of water. At first, the elves believed they had been betrayed. Many felt their deity had forsaken them, and they would soon be swept away by the great flood. Some of the most devout of the goddess's followers questioned their faith, while others took it as a test of loyalty. Many of the most loyal drank from the waters in the pool, and their skin began to change colors. The non-believers who did not drink pleaded to any other gods or goddesses who would listen. The sea continued to rise, threatening to overtake the mountain. No answers came from the heavens other than the small, shimmering pool atop the peak. As hope began to fade for the survivors, the dawn of the winter solstice brought the sprouting of the willow. The solstice shrouded the land in moonlight, and from that moonlight, the sproutling found its nourishment. The sprout grew from the center of the pool, each day multiplying in size until it was the tallest tree in all of Extellus. The willow began to bear silvery leaves, and its limbs grew out in large platforms, so wide that 2 elves could walk abreast across them. The last elves gathered their belongings and began to climb the tree. They wove town squares from the bark and limbs, crude houses from the branches and moss that the willow provided. They brought their supplies, their livestock, and their books. They ate the assortment of fruits and fungi that grew from the tree, and drank from the growing wooden basins that filled with wells of fresh water. The willow grew so tall it pierced the cloud sea above them. The clouds orbited around their colony like a small, contained globe. The cloud wall protected them from the harsh atmosphere of the altitude, allowing the folk of the willow to breathe freely and live comfortably. The tree provided for them, and those that drank from the pool developed arcane properties to assist their new civilization. The great city of Lunathal was founded, and the world on the surface of Extellus was soon forgotten. These elves, over the generations, began to forget their own history. They started to refer to themselves as moonfolk, in reverence of the moon goddess who had saved them. The tree provided sustainability and safety for the citizens of Lunathal. They began to focus on astrology and art. A hero amongst them, holding unforeseen power, saved the old willow from any threats of destruction. He was revered, an unlikely and powerful savior, before he vanished. 200 years passed, and the hero of Lunathal never returned. The folk of the willow continued to live peacefully above the cloud sea, blissfully unaware of the beauty and danger that had awoken on the surface of Extellus. Chapter 1. Fruit Fly. The letter had finally come. Theron could feel his excitement mount as he leapt from his window perch and landed on the wooden platform that held Bub's house. These moments of anticipation were few and far between for the folks in Lunathal.
"Afternoon, Theron,"
Academy assignments here already, it seems. I've been handing them out all day. The courier handed Theron the tightly wrapped parchment and gave him a smile. Good luck to you. Hope you get put with the couriers. We could use you. I don't think so. My time trials around the districts weren't fast enough for that. Theron responded, slipping the thin twine off the letter and unraveling it. He had thought to wait for Bub to open it, but he couldn't contain his excitement. He had to know. With bated breath, Theron read the thick inked letters, and his heart began to sink. Theron of the Middle District. Lunathal Academy Transcript. Academics Report. Adequate. Athletic Report. Proficient. Social Report. Developing. Arcana Presence. None. The Lunathal Workforce Council hereby assigns Theron of the Middle District to the Department of Foraging. Service will be for 10 solstice cycles. Signed, Philadrius, Chief Astrologer. It had happened. Theron was a rotting fruit fly. He tried to shake off the disappointment from being assigned to the Department of Foraging. Part of him was glad his parents weren't around to see this. He felt guilty for thinking that way, but he was just so disappointed. It was hard to contain his dismal attitude. He had barely noticed how hard he had been clenching his fists as he read. Theron hadn't done very well in the academy. He had always known that. He was glad when it ended. He wouldn't have to deal with being teased by the Summerborn again. Yet, there was a part of him that had always expected to at least end up working with livestock or in the rookery. Good news? Bub had hobbled over and begun to read over Theron's shoulder. Theron handed him the letter with a sigh and collapsed on the moss cushions kept on the porch. His grandfather held the letter out at a distance in front of him, measuring the angle until he found the perfect spot where his aged eyes allowed him to read. He began to mutter the contents of the letter to himself as he read. Theron looked up at his grandfather with glazed eyes. Bub was a slender man, hunched over and wrinkled, evidence of a lifetime of labor in Lunathal. Theron rolled his head back in dismay, letting out an audible groan. You have always loved climbing branches, Theron. Bub finished the letter and set it down on his lap. And now we can have all the omela fruit and choice mushrooms the old willow has to offer. This is good news. Theron's face scrunched up, trying to fight back his sorrow. I guess I was still holding out hope they might sense Arcana in me. A part of him felt childish for dreaming that he had Arcana, even after all the years at the Academy had proved he was far from holding any magical potential. All the Winterborn were. That was just the way it was in Lunathal. They would never shape ice or wield sparks like the Summerborn. It doesn't run in our family, Theron. I'm sorry, Kiko. Theron hated when his grandfather called him Kiko. It made him feel like a kid again. He loved Bub and was grateful the old man had saved him from being an orphan. But Bub had a way of spinning things with optimism that Theron loathed. His grandfather always tried to remind Theron that life was a gift. Deep down, Theron knew that, but he certainly did not feel like acknowledging it right now. Bub watched Theron gather his things with those cloudy brown eyes, his lips tight with concern. He placed an aged but firm hand on Theron's shoulder. Oh, Theron, I know you wanted to be assigned to the rookery like your parents were. Time will fly, and who knows, you may like being a forager. Give it a chance. Theron shouldered his pack and turned to face Bub, not even trying to conceal his disappointment. I don't have much of a choice, do I? Theron strode out the door. It was already rather late in the afternoon. It was his last day of freedom before he became a rotting fruit fly. He wasn't going to waste it sulking about on the porch. Thank you for listening. I'm hard at work on the sequel of this book, The Children of Starlight. There's also a short story about the characters in The Fall from Lunathal called The Slippery Skirmish, which is also available on Amazon and Audible. The links are down below. Thanks again.